All right, we are live. Hi, guys. Welcome to my first series here on this channel with Anne, our series, The Historical Tarot, the power and art of manifesting with tarot. So this is really exciting for me on this channel. This is new for this channel to do collaborations like this, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy this. We're going to go through all the tarot cards over the next couple months, and have story time with them too, with Anne. She's an amazing historian, so I am gonna let her introduce herself to you guys and tell you all about herself. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anne Wolke. I'm a historian, and sorry, my throat is deciding to act up now. I am a history professor, and I also have done shows with David Palmer, the Leo King. So I do a show on High Vibe TV called History in the Stars, and I do another series called The Golden Thread, and I'm getting ready to start my own history content videos too, where I'll be doing a little historical forecast using the past and looking at astrological transits in order to tell the future. I'm getting ready to start that up soon too on High Vibe. So I'm so excited to be here today. Yay.
Yay. And also, guys, I pinned to the link. I pinned the link to High Vibe TV in the comment section. So if you guys want to check out High Vibe, there's all kinds of stuff over there as well. So if you are interested in that and interested in Anne's shows, the link is there and it's in the description box. So to start, today we are going to start with the queens of tarot. They are the archetypes of, they're associated with feminine energy, and we just thought it would be perfect to start because we're queens here, and we just wanted to start with the queens first. And so the Queen of Wands is what we're going to talk about today first. The Queen of Wands is one of my favorite queens in the tarot deck. All right, the Queen of Wands is both a masculine and a feminine energy, but we're going to talk first about her feminine qualities, which is her intuition, empathy, creativity, nurturing, and leadership. The Queen of Wands is a very passionate sign, very fiery sign. She is somebody who gets things done. When she has a vision, she's very, very magnetic and very enthusiastic. So she's able to manifest and take action and go after her passions and her goals and her dreams instantly, especially if she's in alignment. Her intuition and her empathy helps her dive deep into her deepest desires, and is her driving force also with creating and being able to create and manifest in her reality. She is a fire sign, and fire is the element that is associated with masculine energy, which allows her to take action. So when she has an idea, when she wants to do something, she doesn't just sit around and just envision it. She's somebody that can take action right away, and she could take on multiple tasks at the same time, which is why she's usually in power, delegating. She can get to the top quick. She could build a legacy. She's very, very strong, a strong woman with masculine qualities, but very, very sexy and attractive, and it's a very passionate sexual energy about her too. So she doesn't come across masculine. She comes across very, very just fiery and energetic is more another way to put it. So I am gonna since I already talked about her balance in the masculine and feminine energies, she's able to do that. I don't want to get too much into the reverse of what can happen if she goes too far until after you talk about your person.
All right. So what we're going to do here is that we've chosen historical women and even at least one contemporary woman to talk about as archetypes and examples of the different energies of the cards that we're looking at. And so in these cases, in a lot of the cases, what we've done is, we're looking at the type of woman, but we're also looking at what is the woman's astrological, what are their big three, or what does their astrology look like also. and for some reason, I accidentally deleted it off of this slide, Frankie. But Jackie, so our first woman is Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, and she was a Leo. And I am trying to remember now what her rising sign was, and I can't at the moment, but we will have that on the rest of them. But Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, I think, really embodies the Queen of Wands energy, because she she's a woman who always has kept to being her own personality. She's been very confident in being herself. She obviously was in a leadership position as the First Lady of the United States when she married John F. Kennedy. And she also kind of carried on after the death of her husband. She was able to move on and get married, but to somebody who reflected her own interests that a lot of people had problems with, right? So she stuck to her own sense of self throughout her public career. And also, I would say, through her childhood. It's interesting that she comes from a family in which her parents were divorced at a time when that wasn't very common. And then she went into social circles that were upper class society circles, coming from a family that was divorced. So it sort of set her apart a bit. She did have her sister with her, who was a younger sister. And so she wasn't all alone, but there was a competitive element between her and her sister. And Jackie was really interesting because she pursued her own interests. She was interested in creativity and art. And later in her life, she became a book editor. And she was very supportive of artists and creative people in all areas, even as the First Lady of the White House as well. She was supposed to be married to a person who was kind of thought to be suitable for someone of her class, and she ended up not or breaking that engagement, and then getting intrigued by John F. Kennedy, who was a young politician, and she ended up marrying him. He was a senator at that time, and we know Jack Kennedy. I guess it's Jack and Jackie, right? But we know President Kennedy for some of the more scandalous stories or rumors about the affairs that he was having. And we do know that he was a womanizer, which was also something that Jackie's father was like that as well. So obviously it was something that she was interested in and intrigued by. So she also had 2 children, while I think one before she went to the White House and one while they were, I think it was right when he had been elected to be president, that she had her second son. But she also had a stillborn child, I believe, and also lost a child at just 4 months. So one thing I've noticed about some of the women we've looked at for Queen of Wands is that they've had difficulties with childbirth, but also have a lot of children. So it's that kind of Leo energy of wanting to have children, but then also sometimes having a tragic situation come up. And Jackie had several, right? So she was obviously beside her husband when he got assassinated in 1963. Then only a few years later, Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated, and he was the one who had stepped up to be the surrogate father for her children. So she had lots of tragedy, was always able to rise above it with class, and she was known for her fashion sense as well. Very fashion forward, a trendsetter in fashions. It's interesting when, I was looking at some of the video around the time of the assassination, because I don't really like to look at the video of the assassination. I don't think that's pleasant. But when people were reacting afterwards, it's really interesting to see how many women in the crowd were dressed like Jackie. Like they had similar haircuts and the fashion sense. So she really was a very influential, iconic woman, self-confident, and a leader. And that's why I chose her as this archetype of the Queen of Wands.
Yeah, and when you said that about the magnetic and how people followed her fashion, that's exactly what I think of is it's a magnetic quality. People are drawn to this energy, very attractive, very feminine, but also very confident and that masculine leadership type of energy. And she was a trendsetter. Actually, even my mother, like I told her, I looked at old pictures of my mom. My grandmother always dressed her children in that style at the time. So she was very beautiful. And it also reminds me, that the fire energy is also my soccer mom, soccer dad too. It's like their children, their families, it's their tribe, it's their pride. It's they do everything. They're so enthusiastic in groups and teams, and they want everybody to succeed. They can see the passion in other people, and they can see a future for people, and they can help push and be the cheerleader for other people as well too. So very supportive and very strong parent and energy for other people too, to get people excited to do things. And I love that about them. So we're going to go to the dark side of the Queen of Wands, which can this is the one. Yeah, this is the one where I like people to remember to look at the scales of 0 to 100 here, because obviously there's a masculine and feminine quality of the Queen of Wands. And so in reverse, it can go to extremes of extreme manipulation, extreme control, extreme power, and extreme bullying. If the masculine is out of balance, if the fire, and in this world today, we're in a world where we're having to step into a masculine energy all the time as all feminine, and work more, think more, so we get out of alignment with our feminine energy. And if a Queen of Wands shows up in reverse, it can show a female who is so masculine energy and will do anything, use any tactic or manipulation to get what they want. It's very, power struggle with the people in their lives, and they can be manipulative, they can underhand people, and it's very destructive, and it can be very bullying and narcissistic in a way too. But that's the extreme qualities of it. There's also a sense of just a lack of passion and a lack of focus because of being overwhelmed with so much that's going on. So if a Queen of Wands tends to, and being out of balance in reverse is more on the feminine side, it's going to be just no desire, because their passion isn't in it anymore. They're burnt out. They're overwhelmed and burnt out, and can become angry and have a lot of self-doubt, and their insecurities can just override everything, and then they just become dull. It's like the fire's completely out. And so there's, that's that 0 to 100. It's not always so manipulative and resentful and vengeful and things like that, and prideful. It can be just no desire whatsoever to even do anything when it comes to the dark feminine. And controlling energy can be very, very powerful too with the Queen of Wands in reverse. It's like, if I can't control what's going on, I have to, in the inside, I can control others on the outside. And also it's that lashing out too, if they're not happy and they're not following their inner desires. Because even like Leo's, the heart center, they big hearts, and very empathetic is the Queen of Wands, very intuitive. And if they're not feeling fulfilled, they're going to react or be explosive and very intense and anger on the outside towards other people. And then what happens, because they're such a heart-centered, it's passion and it's heart-centered, they're tearing away at their own souls. It's almost like and that's why the fire just dies out. And so with that being said, you have a great example here of
yeah, as you were talking about this, I was thinking, maybe Lucretia Borgia is an example of both a good and, we don't want to say good and bad, the dark and light. She actually is an example of the light of the Queen of Wands, because she was known for her light blonde hair, which obviously was rare in Renaissance Europe. So for people to have naturally blonde hair that is not chemically modified or altered in some way, right? So Lucretia Borgia came from a very powerful family in Renaissance Italy. And people usually know who she is either because they watch the TV series The Borgias, or I believe she's a character in an Assassin's Creed game, but someone will have to say something about that in the chat if you know, because I'm actually not familiar with it, but that's what I've heard. And she is just a really interesting woman. And the reason I said she's kind of like an example of the dark and the light is that her fire really didn't burn out. And that's the thing, that she was known for using her passion in ways that weren't necessarily straightforward and upstanding and kind and decent. But by the end of her life, she was working as an administrator at the Vatican, which no woman ever did that, right? So she was definitely an independent woman. She's unique partly because of her family connections. Her father was a pope, all right? And he was a cardinal when she was born, but he became a pope. Cardinals are not supposed to be having sex or children, right? So already she was a child of a kind of a scandalous situation. Her mother was the mistress of this cardinal, but because this was Renaissance Italy, she wasn't discarded. This is a different time and place, and it partly is one of the reasons that led to the Reformation later on, not too long after her birth, because people were kind of fed up with how people in the church weren't living up to what they were telling everybody else to do, right? But anyway, in Renaissance Italy, there were a lot of powerful fighting families. This was a state of principalities that were very close to each other. So they were always fighting, and they were especially fighting for control over the Pope. Because people wanted to have access to the Pope and be able to influence church decisions, which would have, that had European-wide consequences at this time. So Lucretia was very sought after because everybody did know she was the illegitimate daughter of the Pope, of the Pope, and they wanted to marry her in order to make marriage alliances. And so the Pope in this time also was very political and liked to play these different families off of each other. So Lucretia was betrothed to a certain noble person, and then kind of like that betrothal was taken away. So it was always like she was always kind of a political pawn for her father. But she did eventually get married at a pretty young age, and this marriage was politically expedient at first for the Pope, but then they didn't need this family anymore. So they convinced her husband to agree to annul the marriage. But in order to do that, they had to convince him to proclaim that he was impotent. So imagine being powerful enough to get a powerful noble to proclaim to everybody he knows that he's impotent. And so he has to annul his marriage. And then she got married to another man who was looked over as governor of the city that they were living in. But Lucretia was appointed to be the governor of that city. He fled because he was upset, but then she asked him to please come back, and she, used her feminine attraction to get him to come back. When he came back, he was mysteriously murdered, and that got him out of the way, and then she got married again. So she had 3 marriages, which is highly unusual for this time for it to be in the way that she had them. She had affairs with her brother-in-law, other men as well, kind of the servant of the household. She had a lot of children with these different men. They were not obviously all legitimate. She did have a lot of miscarriages and stillborn children, and she ended up actually dying in childbirth. But the reason I said in the end she's sort of successful is that she always maintained her position in society, right? She maintained her power. And she, sorry, I was getting a phone call I had to reject there, but she did end up being an administrator in the Vatican. So very influential and powerful position. So she was able to make this transition between her youthful, beautiful self and then this the later self, which she would have continued on in that kind of role, I'm sure, except that she did die in childbirth, which was very common at that time.
And this was when we were talking earlier, this is the family that they did whatever it took to get to, like, they were so, like, it didn't matter what, and using sex, using any kind of strategic power move to step on anybody to get to where they're at. And that
Mhm.
can be the real toxic side of of the fire energy, if it
Right.
goes uncontrolled.
Yeah.
So, all right, I love it. The next thing was how I use the cards when I'm doing readings and with manifesting, and that's what makes, that's what I think, a lot of people, when I'm doing readings on my channel, I'm always coming from a place of manifesting with the cards. And when I see these cards, especially the Queen of Wands, when I pull the Queen of Wands, it shows me what kind of energy the person's in, usually that or the sign that I'm doing a reading for, or if she shows up. If she shows up in the upright, it's telling me that this person's in a great place to visualize, stay focused, and use your visualization skills, and use your imagination, but also take action towards what it is, inspired action. um, the with the Queen of Wands, it really is all about visualization. It really is with her. She just has to see it and then go for it. And it's about staying focused. And so if she shows up in reverse in a reading, it tells me that there's a lot of resistance and blocks, uh, for the reader, for the person, for the viewer, or the person I'm doing a reading for. It shows that there's a lack of focus and a lack of passion in what it is you really want, or you're burnt out, and you're not even truly sure if it's what you desire. And so because the Queen of Wands knows what they want, and they don't question it, they're so confident in what they want, they go for it. And it's like the law of attraction works for them instantly, because their vibration is so high. And the other cards will usually tell me when I pull, what's going on is, are you burnt out? Are you drained? Are you really passionate about what it is you want? Are you aiming high enough? Are you striving high enough? Are you feeling fulfilled? Are you hyper focused? Are you focused too much? Sometimes the fire energy, when they're manifesting, if it goes too much, and I don't need a reversal to tell me this. I can see it with a lot of swordsy energy. If I pull swords around the Queen of Wands, it can say that you're so hyper focused and you're micromanaging. You're trying to control every single move that's going on in your life or in your relationship. And it's asking you to tame that fire and to find something else to focus on, so that you can allow your manifestations to come in. Because if you get overwhelmed and you have too much fire going on, you're gonna get so kind of zoned in and hyper focused that you're not going to see the bigger picture anymore. Whereas the Queen of Wands can see the big picture. They're usually the one that can see the end game right away, and that's what inspires them there. And so there's a sense of, when the Queen of Wands comes in and trying to convey the message to people, that you're focusing too much on your 3D reality, you're focusing too much on your object of desire, and you're not allowing that person to breathe. And so another person can feel your energy, And so if you're scanning through pictures or focusing in, or you're wondering when they're going to or you're trying to manifest so much that you're over scripting, or you're over focused on your desire, that creates, the law of attraction says, I don't have this. I don't have this in my life, and I need to tame the fire. And usually we do that with adding some more earthy energy, so normally I'll see some sort of pentacles or something come up that'll say, you need to ground yourself and look at things from a more stable energy. You need to tame that fire and kind of come back down to and refocus, reprogram and refocus what it is you truly want and what you desire. Because right now, what's happening is the intensity will get so much that you'll grasp even more. And what a Queen of Wands will do is try to force things to happen in their 3D reality. So they're an action type of person. So they'll think, if I just do more, if I can control it more, or if I can make it happen, because that's a masculine energy. We make things happen. But when you're manifesting, or when you're trying, and especially in love readings, and that's what a lot of people come to tarot for, it's like you can't take uninspired action. And if something's not moving in your favor, the more you try to force it, the more resistance you're causing. So the Queen of Wands to me plays a big part when I'm doing readings. When I see that, when people are trying to manifest, like, I know right away that you've got to pull some of that energy back, or you're not going after what you truly desire. All right, you're losing passion in what it is you want. If it's too hard for a fire sign to get, that in itself can be very triggering, because a fire sign wants things to happen quick, and they can ignite things fast, and they can get things fast. So if they're struggling with something formulating or manifesting in their life, it's just going to create anger and frustration, and you can't manifest from that type of energy. So
Can we go back to the previous slide? I just wanted to ask you a question really fast. I mean, so we might as well keep this one up there. I think that, so one of the things that I wanted to point out is that everybody gets this card in their spread, no matter what your astrological sign is, right?
Yes.
And when it comes up, it's really telling you that you need to be more passionate about whatever it is, whatever are your own interests, right? I think you mentioned earlier to me when we were having conversations before this, the Queen of Wands is like that. It's the alignment between the head and the heart, right?
Yeah.
That you're very aligned and in tune with what you want. And I think these two women are good examples of that, for good or for bad. And even though they came from highly privileged situations, it's just interesting how they each stayed true to whatever it was that they wanted. And, while Lucretia Borgia is probably seen as being a little more egotistical in the way that she did that, I think Jacqueline Kennedy is a good example of someone who stayed true to who she was, so much so that she became a style icon for what she was. And she had a sister that I mentioned before, who was always the one that was favored when they were children. And she was the one who her mom thought would go on to be the one who had the great marriage and all of that. But what happened with her was she was always going out and looking for the next thing, right? She was looking for, well, what can I be? Should I do this? Like, she wanted to be an actress for a while. And then I don't remember what else she did, but I mean, she had a lot of different ideas about the kind of career she wanted, and they weren't always true to herself. Whereas her sister didn't look at the outside world. She was following her inner compass the whole time. Yes. And in touch with what she really enjoyed. And she really liked photography. She did photojournalism at a time when that was not thought to be something a woman would do. And she wasn't shy about getting in people's faces, which is ironic because she also had a problem with photographers following her around all the time. She was so confident in who she was that the photographers turned their camera on her, But I think that that's an important thing to note, right? Is just to turn inwards when that card comes up, maybe even in its reversal as well, that you really need to get in touch with who you are and what it is that will work for you, and focus less on the outside
Yeah,
world.
it definitely. It's that's why I think the Queen of Wands is like the master manifester too. It's like in the same way I said with the Queen of Swords, it's like they've got the balance of the masculine and feminine, which is your thoughts and your heart space, and it's like when you are tapped into your truest desires, and your higher self knows exactly what you want, you stay in alignment with that, you stay true to your end game no matter what's showing up for you in the outside world. You always turn within, because if you truly desire it, it's meant to be. It's meant to be. You can manifest it. That's the first sign of its manifestation. It's meant to be here. And when you're in reversed, and if you're seeking all different things, and you're just kind of scattered energy, which can be Queen of Wands in reverse, is just really scattered, like not focused, overwhelmed, and just trying to grasp for anything on the that's when all the signs, any queen or any sign, is on the focusing on the outside too much to try and to fill whatever's going on. But you need to turn in, and what is that? Because a Queen of Wands is so passionate and in tune with their deepest desires. You've got to go within and ask yourself, what is it that I really want? What is it? Because once a Queen of Wands knows that, it's game on. You can stay focused, because when there's so much fire that when they want something, that's all they need, to be in alignment with their true desire. That's the bottom line. And then their mind, their masculine ability, can take action and go for it. And that's where the inspired action comes from. You don't take action out of fear, because you're so confident in yourself and you want it so bad that you just go for it. It's not I'm going to do or control or try to get something done because, out of fear, in a sense. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that point up.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That was really good. I'm learning a lot right now.
Yeah, I love, I love that we're bouncing back and forth too. And I wanted to mention too that for people who are doing, because we didn't bring in pictures of other tarot cards, but just knowing the base foundation of these cards, and understanding the qualities of the cards. When you're using any tarot deck, each tarot deck is going to teach or say something different, but it usually will just emphasize a certain quality of the Queen of Wands or the card. And because there's just so many aspects of the Queen of Wands that don't always get noticed, like the very strong empathic and intuitive. And a lot of people they see more of the fire, the passion, the magnetic, right, and the confidence. But there is a really beautiful, sensitive, creative, and very nurturing energy that comes with the Queen of Wands too. And but that fire, that magnetic, sometimes. But Jackie Onassis kind of really gives that soft feminine of the Queen of Wands too. So that's all I wanted to add to that. And so when I think I already touched on how it can block you when manifesting. So I think we're going to move on to the Queen of Cups now. And did you have anything else to say about the Queen of Wands?
No, that was it.
All right. The Queen of Cups, the most intuitive and sensitive, not the most, all feminine energies, all queens are the feminine energy is very intuitive, very, very compassionate. But the watery energy of the Queen of Cups is connected to emotions, connected to depth, connected to feelings and imagination. And it's all feminine energy. The water energy may have, I think, for me, when I pull this or when I see this, it's a very empathic energy. It's a harder time to tap into a masculine and take action sometimes. And but so the feminine, the Queen of Cups, when I see, is somebody that really has to tap into allowing things and to receive things to happen, and just to imagine and be very nurturing, and just, I'm going into the manifesting part of it. I'm jumping ahead of myself, getting into the manifesting part of it. But I do want to talk about the imagination and the love and nurturing and the healing qualities of the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups is the natural healer, and can see into the depths of how other people are feeling, and and I think sometimes the Queen of Cups can get a bad rap too. We talked about this as well, with being able to feel other people's emotions, and other people don't want to know, or don't want to feel, or don't want to be called out, or don't want to know, don't want to tap into their feelings, whereas the Queen of Cups can do that so easily. It makes for somebody that when you're around in their presence, a Queen of Cups can make somebody feel comfortable and relaxed and nurtured. But it's hard for, the Queen of Cups gets very sensitive, because a lot of people can't tap into the watery energy of a Queen of Cups and understand why they're so sensitive, and why they might get their feelings hurt a little bit more. Let me see. Did I tap on, what else did I want to say about the Queen of Cups? Is, I feel like I missed something I was going to talk about. Let me just have you go. I think I was going to already go in. There's Princess Diana. I was going to go. I'm already trying to go into the manifesting part of it. So I'll let you go with the nurturing, loving qualities, the motherly, the healer,
Well,
passionate.
I mean, of course, Princess Diana, since we're talking about queens as well. And I think that she's somebody we all think of as a person who embodied this sort of energy of compassion. And really, I mean, her actually in one of her last interviews, she was asked, what did she want to be known as? And this was after she was getting divorced from Prince Charles, from the then Prince Charles. She said she wanted to be known as the Queen of People's Hearts. And isn't that perfect? She
Yes.
is a Cancer sun, and that's one. And I think she has a Sagittarius moon and maybe a Sag rising. I don't remember. Of course, I don't know why it's not showing up, the signs that I put there. So it must be something that is happening in the way that it's projecting. I should have written down what all of their signs were, but that picture there of her dancing with John Travolta, I think really shows that that's that playful, more Sagittarian athletic side that she had as well. Athletic and dance. She loved dance so much. And that seems like such a combination between Sagittarius and Cancer to me, that of course you would love ballet, right? And we think of her as being this loving mother. There's a picture of her there with Mother Teresa, who she met. And of course, a lot of people compared the two of them because they both had this humanitarian side of wanting to really nurture people of the world and to take care of them. Princess Diana definitely had that aspect of her. And of course, we know that she had a very unhappy marriage, though, as well. So she was very young when she got married, I think only 19. And she didn't really know what she was getting into, right? The fact that the prince had a mistress that she found out about. And a lot of things were happening in that situation that she wasn't prepared for. She had been a nursery school teacher, like a preschool teacher, before she became married to the prince. That's such a Queen of Cups Cancerian position or job, right? And I think she was probably ready for the royal life. She probably would have loved, she was loving the idea of having children one day because she was so maternal as well. And then she entered the situation in which the people were so cold, right? There was this whole emphasis on being reserved, and that famous royal family British Reserve where they didn't show their emotions. And here she was, such an emotional person. And what ended up happening in that situation where she had to repress that side of herself so much that she turned a lot of her suffering on herself, and she became bulimic, and she also tried to hurt herself a few times. She threw herself down a flight of stairs, and she was just desperately trying to get other people to connect with her on that deep emotional level in her relationships. And I think she was able to do that with her children before her very, untimely death at such a young age. So in all, she had such a tragically short life, full of a lot of pain that she didn't show to other people, really. But it was like she wore her heart on her sleeve. She couldn't hide that side of herself from people, and everyone really empathized with her and connected with her because she was so honest with her emotions. And I think, to me, Frankie, that's something that, like, the Queen of Cups archetype embodies so well, is that they feel things and connect with people on such a deep level that they bring healing to people's lives just through casual encounters, but also for their families and close friends.
That's what I guess I was trying to tap into was, a lot of water energy is that we need to connect on such a deeper level. And a lot of people, just they're in their, more superficial. They don't need that connection like a water energy does. A water energy needs that depth, needs that connection. And usually a water sign, or, Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, really, they do repress their emotions, and because they're usually raised in families or early on taught to hide their emotions, or, repress them because it's people don't want to deal with it, and it doesn't seem, you know what I mean? And so what happens is, what makes them a healer, like you said, is because you repress those emotions, but you got to work with it somehow. And so they find intuitive ways to connect with other people, and usually through the healing arts, or usually through some sort of humanitarian way, where they can, just by their presence or their touch or the way they talk, or they will make that connection somehow. They have to. It's part of their makeup to connect on that vibrational level, on that emotional level. And so it does. When you repress all those emotions, you end up using it as a tool. And it also can be a very powerful tool, which I keep wanting to get into the manifestation part of it, but the feeling part, because when you can feel so deeply in the imagination of a water energy, being able to imagine and feel into what it is you really want is how you can call something in. And that's why feminine energy really all just has to receive it, just be open to receive it, because when you feel it, that's part of the secret of manifestation. And it makes I keep saying us because everybody knows I'm a Scorpio, but it makes a feminine, and it makes a water energy able to just care for people so deeply and understand people, no matter what. And it also can make, a lot of water energy ends up becoming victim or empaths, in those victim, empath narcissist kind of dynamics too, because they want to nurture everybody, they want to fix, they want to help, they want to connect. And so they'll get caught up in these dynamics, and usually end up hurting themselves on the inside. Like you said, they have to turn within, they have to repress these things, and they usually are the ones that are self-sabotaging, sad, depressed. She was bulimic. There's always something, they internalize it, and they self-sabotage themselves and hurt themselves when they're not receiving that connection on the outside. So.
Yeah, and I think one of Diana's things is something that I see in my friends, who I have a very close friend who's a Cancer, and she's actually Scorpio rising too. And people I know who are women who are Cancers, especially, a lot of times they don't feel entitled to make claims for things for themselves. It's like they have to actually convince themselves it's okay to say they want something for themselves.
Yeah.
That's where I see a lot of people, a lot of the friends I've had, because I always have very close friends who are Cancer women, and they're so kind. And it's like, I think the key for a Cancer is to pick people who will advocate for you,
Yeah.
because you may not feel like advocating for yourself. And that's what we saw with Diana, is that she entered this situation in which she was in, it was like she was in a capsule apart from the world. And she had to always be in that royal bubble where she could not have contact with ordinary people who might advocate for her. Instead, just by being who she was, that made people in the royal family want to compete with her, right? Because she was being popular. She was so popular because she was being who she was. And then that kind of backfired against her too. So
Yeah.
yeah, relationships seem really important for
Yeah.
water energies. Like
It,
that, good
it's
relationships are key.
it's key. Connection is key. And to be connected to the right people, like you said, you have to have the right people, especially out of all the Cancerians, really. I mean, water energy is very, very feminine energy. So there's a natural tendency to be sort of more passive, more, and like they don't tap into that masculine energy as much, and so you really do need somebody strong. And so it's part of the becoming water energy is becoming, creating strong boundaries so that you can be in healthy relationships. And that's why if they, it's easy to find them in abusive relationships, traumatic situations, and because all a water energy wants to do is nurture. And it's almost like there's always this question of why. I don't understand. Why are you being so mean? Why is the world so mean to me? Why, I just want to love. I just want to, because it's easy for a water energy to feel compassion and feel love and feel empathy, even for perpetrators, even for people that have, really hurt them. It's like, so it's usually the journey of the Queen of Cups to become an empowered empath, really creating boundaries, really standing up for themselves and understanding their emotions. Because like for some, if they've gone through a lot of trauma in their life, they might not even, and if they've been repressing their emotions most of their life, or they were raised in families where they weren't allowed to connect with their emotions, they don't even understand what, so they've got to learn their power of their emotions and learn how to express. Expression is really the key too. I mean, because they can get lost in their world, and it's able to be able to express their inner world on the outside. So it's very introverted too. And when a water sign can turn that on the outside world, like become a humanitarian or do things, it's magic. It becomes magic, and the connection can be, they can connect with so many people.
Mm.
But that's the path of it, it's because codependency, emotional volatility, sadness, fears, emotional outbursts, and things like that can come in with kind of tapping into the Queen of Cups in reverse now. But there definitely becomes, because the only way, the thing that happens with the water energy in reverse is, it's like victim mentality. It's so you've got to figure out how to live and how to survive. And to do that, it's through a manipulation. It's through, guilt, making people feel guilty, making people feel sorry, and it's the only way to really, it just seems their way of getting what they want, and they get stuck in that, and then they don't think that they can pull themselves out of it. So I think water signs the most have a harder time getting on their feet and being independent.
Mm.
And so when people talk about manipulation too, I wanted to bring this up because you brought this up too, because a lot of people, like, water energy can be emotionally manipulative. And it was a good point you made that it's not really emotionally manipulative. Water energy can see the depth of emotions that other people maybe not ready to see, or don't realize that they are, they have those, the depths of that emotion. So it might look like it's manipulative, but to a water energy feels so deeply that it feels so real to them, where it might not feel real to another person. So it may seem like manipulation, or using manipulation with emotions to get what they want, but that's the only way they know how to express themselves.
Mm.
So I hope that made sense. We were talking a little bit about that last night. So let me turn, because we just went into The Queen of Cups.
But you-
Ah. All right, so there is a dark side, like there is a dark side to the Queen of Cups in reverse, and obviously this is what's here is very unstable energy, very overly emotional, and very manipulative. Now we're going to that 0 to 100 again. I just kind of expressed, how a water energy can show up and use guilt or feel sorry for me or be the victim and things like that, but this gets a little bit more serious. There's a darker side to the reverse cups where they'll completely ignore their intuition, and they will use other people's emotion, and they'll use empathy for personal gain. And they'll also very self-sabotaging energy too. And they can hurt others, and they know how to hurt people because they know how to get you where it really, really hurts and can dig really deep. So this is your person you chose. Let's hear about her. I can't hear you. Something happened.
You go to the next slide.
Okay.
There she is.
There she is.
Bloody Mary. So this is a completely different type of royal energy in England. And when you were talking right now, I was thinking of that phrase, hurt people, right? That would be Mary the First, the Queen of England. So she was queen, and I have her dates actually wrong. She was born in 1519, but she died in 1558. So she was, pretty young, but this poor woman had been the daughter of King Henry VIII, and everybody knows King Henry VIII as being the king who divorced or executed his wives. So his first wife was Catherine of Aragon, who was a Spanish princess, and the marriage was made first with his brother. His brother Arthur died young, and Catherine was in England, and so the decision was made for Henry VIII to marry her so that the alliance wouldn't go away, and also to continue to keep Catherine's dowry in the state in England too, right? Because they don't want to lose all that money by sending her back home to Spain. And so Henry was married to Catherine of Aragon, supposedly happily at first. But after a while, she is the queen who never had a male heir, and she was having miscarriages and stillborn children. And also she had a boy that died young. This seems to be a theme for all of these women, and we didn't intend on that. But I think it's interesting that that's coming up. But Mary was the daughter of Catherine, and Henry loved her, thought she was wonderful, loved that she actually looked like him. And Henry VIII, we think of him as he's going to come up again later on. We'll have a picture of him, but we think of him as this really big guy who's not very attractive, but for his time, he was considered very attractive and a very desirable prince when Mary was born. So the fact that Mary seemed like her father was a good thing. And he was very proud of her. She was very well educated and very smart and had a really great young childhood. But then, after her mom wasn't having a male child, Henry decided he wanted to get rid of her. But in order to get rid of her and to divorce her, he needed to leave the church, leave the Roman Catholic Church, because the Pope refused to sanction a divorce. He would not give him a divorce. And so Henry ended up breaking away from the Roman Catholic Church, creating his own church, and then divorcing Mary's mother, and then marrying Anne Boleyn, but who had been his mistress. Mary then grew up to be very bitter. Her mom was treated like, worse than a servant. She was kept in England, and she had a place to live, but she was not treated like a princess at all. I mean, imagine being the cast-off wife. There's a new wife who won't allow you as the king to treat the ex-wife very well, right? So she was not living in luxury. It was like the cast-off wife and her daughter. So that was Mary's childhood, and it was not at all fun. She went through a period of time where, okay, she's a desirable bride to be for someone when she was really young, but after the divorce, nobody really wanted to marry her. And then after a while, finally, Henry took her back as his daughter and said, okay, we'll find her a husband. And she ended up getting married to the King of Spain, who was Philip II. And that was actually right around when she became queen as well. So she did end up becoming queen after everything that Henry went through to have another person. He had a male child who was king. And then Mary came to the throne when that boy died young. And I hope this is all making sense, because I'm trying to make all this really concise. So when Mary came to the throne, England had been Protestant. They'd broken away from the Roman Catholic Church. They had gotten rid of all the monasteries and taken all the money of the church. And Mary comes to the throne, and she is extremely Roman Catholic. So she takes it back to Roman Catholicism. She was a really harsh, she is like a maladjusted empath, right? So she was very moody. She was a Pisces, actually, very introverted, but she's the ruler of this state that had Henry VIII as a king, who was very public, and Edward, his son, Edward VI. So not only does she want to become Roman Catholic, she is not playing the game and being, really colorful like Henry VIII would have been. People liked her because she was the rightful queen. And but she was very harsh on anyone who was Protestant. She was known for publicly burning up to 300 Protestants at the stake. So there were very public persecutions of people who were Protestant during her reign. She also had a series of false pregnancies. And when she died, she thought she was pregnant, but then it turned out to be something like a cancer. So she had a really not very nice life. And she comes down to us being known as Bloody Mary. So very an unappealing, interesting, and mysterious woman.
So with the whole thing with her tumor, it ties really into nicely with the manifesting and how a water energy can be an amazing manifester, especially when it comes to the body. And because water energy is so introverted and so imaginative and can use that imagination to manifest physical things. And that's why that healing energy too, being able to like Reiki and use the power of healing in a good way, but in a bad way, you can manifest things like disease in your body. And if you're not expressing your emotions healthy wise, or you're not able to express yourself through connections. And so I just thought of that when you were saying that. And it also sort of ties into how when I pull the Queen of Cups in a reading, and when it comes to manifesting too, it does also remind me that it is important for somebody with water energy to be in a very loving environment. If you're trying to manifest and you're in a place and you're not comfortable, water energy absorbs all the energy around them. And so it's really important, if you're trying to change, or you're trying to change your situation, or you're trying to manifest, that a water energy really does have to take a look at their environment. I think anybody in particular, I mean, we're just looking at the queens right now, but I could pull the Queen of Cups for anybody, but it will show me that it depending on the cards that are around it, what's going on in your world. And if there's too much noise going on around you, you're going to embody that and sponge it in, and you're not going to be able to manifest from a place of love. You're not going to feel good. And a water energy needs to feel good, needs to feel love, and needs to feel compassion. So when I pull it, it is saying to pay attention to your environment and to maybe even change your environment, but to also use your imagination and your intuition a lot more, tap more into that, because I can pull a Queen of Cups for people and look at other cards and see that people are in their heads too much, or they're not focused on how they're really feeling. They're not trusting their intuition. They're not going within. Everybody's thinking, using that masculine noggin of theirs, and not really embodying what it feels like to really get down into your emotions and feel into what it is you want. Because part of manifesting, and I was talking about this earlier today, is you have to be able to feel what you want. You have to be able to feel your desires, feel it true. If you don't feel it, if you don't embody the feeling of the wish fulfillment, the end game, you're not going to be in vibrational alignment with it. And it's like, that's where, your thoughts create your reality, but your thoughts also control your emotions too. What you're thinking and how you're feeling is connected. So it's really important to understand how to be in tune with your feelings and really connect with your feelings and drop into your emotions and understand them when it comes to manifesting. Because people want to just think and do, take action, fire and air, but I don't want to do the feeling stuff. I don't want to, I want to try and get past all this. And so it is about expressing and really tapping into your feelings when it comes to manifesting. Now, the thing is with the Queen of Cups in reverse, it can indicate emotional instability. It just shows that you're out of control with your emotions. You're all over the place, and you're struggling to manage your feelings, and you're finding it difficult to connect with people on an emotional level. And if you're finding it difficult to connect with people on an emotional level, or even connect with yourself on an emotional level, I tend to see that with people who are constantly looking for people to save them. Come fix me, come heal me, come help me, because you're so out of tune with what's really going on within, and you're wanting somebody to save you. And this is going to cause resistance when you're manifesting. Nothing from your external world is going to save you. Nothing. I mean, you can cry all you want. You can cry. You can try and get people to feel bad and things like that, but part of manifesting is doing the work within and in your imagination, and allowing it to show up in the outside world. And when a Queen of Cups shows up in reverse, it shows me that somebody is not stable in their emotions, and they're expecting somebody else to come in and save them, or either that, or they're just not emotionally available as well, or they're connecting with people who are not connecting with them on an emotional level. And that's just going to continue to make somebody drop even more into depression and sadness. And it's hard to manifest in your life coming from a vibration like that. So
that's interesting, because you also mentioned, I think actually the next slide is the one that's on manifesting, right? Or just
keep that in. Yeah, they're pulling the cards. There it is. Yeah.
It seems like then you said they can, so with Mary, right, you had the example of you can sometimes manifest your own pain or your own medical condition, right?
Yeah.
So when you're not really directing your emotions correctly. So it seems like it's very easy. That would be another thing that you have to be mindful of, is what are you accidentally manifesting? So to try to be more intentional about manifesting what you want. So it's like they have this monumental task of having to rein in these really expansive feelings and be able to direct them towards something. And it's funny that the people I've known who are have a lot of water energy have extensive journals, And that makes sense to me why that would be such an important tool,
Yeah.
right? That you can get it all out,
Yeah.
but then maybe move on to like reining it in a little bit so you can manifest something that's not going to reflect the depth of all those painful emotions. You don't want to continue to manifest painful situations, right?
No, and that's the thing, is having the responsibility of all the emotions and being very emotional card, the Queen of Cups. It's like, if you don't have a creative outlet, if you don't, that's why I always think of Enneagram 4, the artist, it's like usually you find a lot of artists, watery energies, a lot of musicians, I mean, you can see that with the Queen of Wands too. But there needs to be some sort of outlet, a way of expressing emotions. And that's why I was saying, if a water sign's around an environment where they can't and they repress, it becomes self-sabotage. And then what happens is self-doubt, fears, insecurities. And when you're a water, and those emotions can be really a lot for people, a watery energy to deal with, and it will manifest as illness and sickness and self-sabotage or hurting oneself. And because the pain, you've got to do something with those darker feelings that nobody wants to, and they can't, and if you don't have a way to express it, it's just, that's where I think a lot of Cancer actors too have committed suicide. I don't really want to bring that up, but that's the truth. I mean, it's common for water energy, anybody. But if I see it in a reading, or if somebody's really tapping into that, but I think Kurt Cobain was Pisces. I'm not sure. I think he was Pisces. But there's this depth of, nobody can connect to me, and like, there's always the good feelings, and then there's all those dark feelings. And when you're trying to manifest, this self-sabotaging energy can also, like I said, grasp and over attachment. So when you're in those darker feelings, or you have no way to express yourself or use your imagination or find an outlet to do that with, you end up clinging or needing somebody else to save you or help you, or pick you up from the waters, the trench, down deep, and this can hold you back from manifesting love into your life. It can hold you back from manifesting anything in your life, because anytime we're too attached to anything, that's resistance in itself. And you're creating blocks by thinking you need something, or holding on, or wanting something so bad. You're telling the universe, I don't have this. And when you have an emotional attachment, I think that's one of the, it's hard to detach from that, when with our emotions. If you're air sign, or you're the Queen of Swords or the King of Swords, you can, you're in your head, you can cut shit off. You don't, but when you're emotions, and it's deep, it's really, people feel emotions like it's a real thing, and don't understand that we can we can um we can control our emotions a lot more with even just what we're thinking, but when you're feeling your emotions, it feels impossible to somebody who's very emotional. It's like, no, this is real. This sadness is real. This pain is real. This is all real to me. But really, it's not real. It's just an energy, a vibration. Um, but it feels so real. It's hard to cut attachments and things like that, which, so when I see the Queen of Cups come in reverse and somebody's trying to manifest, I'm like, it's really a hard one, because it can be a very triggering one, and it's really hard to pull somebody out of that kind of place to help them. Because if you can, and you can be a Queen of Cups in upright, you follow your intuition, and you can create, and you can just allow. It's almost like the projector type energy. You don't have to do anything when you're in your feminine energy. You just have to be open to receive, and just use your imagination. Your imagination, according to like Neville Goddard, is God. It's like, that's how we create even the vortex, anything like that. But if you're wounded or hurt, and you're not going to see that. And it's going to be it's so hard to pull somebody out of a depression.
Right.
How do you tell somebody, who shows up as a Queen of Cups in reverse, hey, you're going to have to act happy. You're gonna have to be happy today, and so that you can call in your, you know. But it's easy to say somebody who might be just an overthinker, or something like that. Hey, you know what? You can think these thoughts, control these thoughts, but it's really hard to, um, for a feeler, anyways. I think. I hope that made sense.
Mhm.
Because I
Yeah.
know it can be just as painful in your head too, our mind and body. I'm trying to connect the two. I just think that the feminine energy, the wounds and the pain that is felt with that is so deep and can get really dark.
Mhm. Seems like maybe shifting, trying to introduce something that makes you feel good is the answer, right?
Changing
To
your
you have
mind.
to put yourself in a situation in which your feelings can be used for something positive that'll start bringing in what it is that you want.
Well, if you're an emotional person and you're a feeler, your environment is number one. You have got to be in a different environment if you need help changing your feelings and you're not getting the connections that the connection from others, and if you're not getting the encouragement or the support, and you're around negative or dramatic people, or people that are, you hear a lot of people that talk about being in relationships with narcissists. Usually I'll pull the Queen of Cups in reverse. It's like, so you've got to put, the most important thing is, to feel better, you've got to remove yourself from what's making you feel bad. It comes down to the feel. Just feel like, if you don't feel good, then move. Get out of that, go somewhere. There's no thinking, making, fixing, nothing. Because if for a watery energy, or the Queen of Cups, it's all about, the emotion. So you've got to shift the emotion. So you've got to go do something physical, active, do, or get help. Because it's like, you're not going to get the support. You're not going to be able to get the support by overly attaching to somebody around you and trying to change them and get them to give you those feelings. And that's what happens. You've got to find that within and heal that within. And so a lot of water energy wants to fix and heal everybody before they're even healing themselves.
Hmm.
It's almost like, if I care for you, if I take care, it's like even the mother energy, that it doesn't take care of herself, but everybody else is taken care of, and she's falling apart. It can be like that. You've got to heal yourself. And so it's most important, when I see the water energy, the Queen of Cups show up, that self-love. And it's like that word gets thrown around, but it's so important. Self-love, self-care. You've got to really start filling your cup. But most of the time you'll see a Queen of Cups caring for everybody else, but self-sabotaging or hurting themselves in the inside, like you were talking about earlier.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep, Diana is a good example of that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Mm.
So, all right. We have the Earth energy, the Queen of Pentacles, right? Next one. So the Queen of Pentacles is funny to me, because when I'm doing a reading and I see the Queen of Pentacles, I'm a Virgo rising, and I'm always like, God, why do I have to pull the Queen of Pentacles? She's always boring to everybody. Everybody's always like, they want to see. And I'm like, the Queen of Pentacles is actually one of the most amazing queens. She's a lot like the Empress. I always put the two of them together as the most feminine, the most nurturing, most supportive, most loving, most caring, most patient. The mama bears, very resourceful. They're the mama bear. They're rock solid. They're reliable and trustworthy. They know how to make their home stable and safe, their environment. They're very grounded. So earth energy to me is, they can tap into all the elements, and and just use everything. They're very resourceful. They just know when and how to use everything. And so grounded and caring and nurturing. I also, the Queen of Pentacles, it can be a single working mom too, and when I pull that card, very independent, very sufficient, and very skilled, very powerful business leader as well too. But if she is in a home life, even if she's not working, she can be somebody who runs her family like that. is, it has all the good things, very luxury, takes care of, it takes care of everybody. Everybody's going to have the best. Everybody, it's going to be wealthy, and it's going to show up in all kinds of different ways in a reading. She can be a little rigid and a little, over analyzing and very cautious and things like that. Very practical, which can come across as boring sometimes, but far from it. I think she's one of the most amazing queens. And here you go.
I think it's so funny that you really focus so much on the mothering, nurturing, creating a safe space. Like, we're picturing the next slide's going to be a woman with a little baby. And then it's Mae West.
It's Mae West. Because I think it's funny that I was kind of saying that she can come across as boring and practical, and then we do have Mae West.
Yes.
Because that's the Queen of Pentacles is embodies the body, embodies sex. The Empress card is, it was funny, a long time ago I was reading up on the Empress card, and it was like great sex. So every time I see the Empress card, I'm like, oh, I guess you're gonna be having great sex this week with the person. And so people don't think of that energy as being a very sexual energy, but it's very, very sexual energy. And
that's what I think of, is it's grounded and earthy and what physical, right? That it's not afraid of embodying their value. Like, I think Taurus energy is perfect for this.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I think that card, isn't that the Taurus card? Or
the Empress. So Taurus, I always think of, they're full-bodied women. They don't care. They are so confident. They get what they want. They're usually very sexual, very, very kapha energy and Ayurveda. I mean, they embody sex.
Well, then perfect. Then Mae West is perfect for that. Yeah. She was actually a Leo, but she's Taurus rising. And what's interesting is that she is a Cancer moon. So she has all these qualities that we've been talking about so far. They're all embodied in Mae West. So a lot of people don't know who Mae West is anymore. So I'll just briefly say that she was an actress in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I don't know when she finally stopped making films. She lived till 1980, and she was a very vibrant individual. She stayed in this sexual nurturing to all men kind of personality, and everyone. Like, she also was the type of woman who wasn't depicted as being catty to other women. So she's loving to everybody, right? And very supportive. She was also known for being, in real life, she was an early supporter of the gay rights movement. And I mean, there also were a lot of drag queens that styled themselves on Mae West. So, I mean, because you could see there's so much about her that is just so feminine, like exaggerated feminine and put on. And she kept that till she died, probably. I don't know. I mean, you see pictures of her as an old woman, and she always had her wig on. She always had her waist cinched, and she was very sexually forward, but in a way that was double entendre. So she wasn't direct with it. So she was a very witty person as well. And she was an actress, but she was also a writer. She was a vaudeville performer on stage before she even became an actress, because she was performing at the age of 5 in her local, like, she was from Brooklyn, I think. And she just went down and performed at their local hall where there were performances. Her mom would take her and allow her to perform. She was kind of born as a performer. And then she wrote a play for Broadway in the 1920s. The play was called Sex, and it was hugely popular, but it pushed the boundaries just a little bit too much past what the local authorities were comfortable with. So it eventually got shut down, and she got involved in a whole trial around that play. Then she started to shift to making more movies. But then as an actress, she was always pushing the boundaries also. So she was the one who, her famous line was, one of her famous lines was, when I'm good, I'm very, very good. When I'm bad, I'm better. Or she was always saying things like that and being very suggestive to men in the films. So she started acting at a time before there was a rating system in place and before they really had to censor films. And I would say it's largely because of her that they started to have to censor films. So she was always pushing the boundaries, very comfortable with her sexuality. When she was 40s, 50s, I don't remember how old she was. She had, I think in her 50s or maybe even 60s, she had a partner. I don't think they ever got married, but maybe they got married. So she had a husband type person who was 30 years younger than her, and he stayed with her until her death, right? So she just, and she wasn't trying to pretend like she was young. She aged gracefully, but always dressed seductively. So that's Mae West. I think she really embodies the energy of being comfortable with the womanly, the female shape. She's
Yeah.
comfortable with being a woman, and it didn't hold her back at all. She pursued abundance. She was very wealthy and very successful, the top box office draw for many, many years. She always made sound financial decisions. So she's not one of these people who ended up washed up, a has been because she couldn't afford to live. She was just a really smart businesswoman and also a very intriguing and evocative performer.
Yeah. I love her as the example. She can also even tap into a little bit of the darkness of it too. Um, and the thing about the dark side of the Queen of Pentacles is it can be overindulgence. You know, we think of the Empress card as the abundance card and fertility and birth and creation and being able to manifest abundance. The Queen of Pentacles is good when it comes to the material world, and like you were just saying, but it can go so far to where it's greed, where it's too much, where it's oversex, where it's the other women, where it's the, you know, just overindulgence, too much. And then it can also go to the other place where it's a lack mentality, like I don't have enough, it's not enough. And I also, there can be jealousy, there can be judgments, there can be being overly critical and overly judgmental. And it's just this fear of loss can end up being an attachment as well too. And so I think of the devil card with Capricorn energy. It's like being attached to material things and then not want, and then so everything's for personal gain, everything's for material gain, everything has to have a value. Or and then also your worth is with the Queen of Pentacles in reverse can be tied to material things. So if you don't have material things or if you lose stuff, so I could imagine what would happen to Mae West if she had lost everything. I mean, it's like who you are becomes what you manifest, and what you have in this world, is your worth. Pretty much, if you're in reverse, you value yourself like that. And so there can be a place of, if you are the Queen of Pentacles in reverse and you're not like, oh, like you don't have this greed or you don't have anything, it's more of a lack mentality. And then you can resist, you can create resistance by being envious and jealous of other people, and then constantly staying in this energy of jealousy and fear and loss and not having enough, that you'll take from whoever or take wherever you can get. And so that to me shows a darker side of the Queen of Pentacles. What do you have here? Discover hidden aspects of their self, trust in the abundance of, okay, yeah, that's kind of everything I was saying. And they're very transformative. I thought that was kind of cool too when I saw that about the Queen of Pentacles, is because everybody always thinks that, I always think about the Scorpio death card when it comes to transformation, but the Queen of Pentacles is all about the material world and your body and the earth. And so we're talking about the transformation of life and death and constant cycles of um of the world too. So let me see, dark subconscious and overlooked, the darker side of the Queen of Pentacles. So who do you have?
Well, here is Anne Boleyn, and I said you'd see Henry VIII
Yeah.
again later, but I wanted to point out too, with that last slide, I was looking at your notes when I compiled this, right? And I think that you have such a uniquely scorpionic view of this earth energy, because what you really tapped into also is like the axis of Taurus and Scorpio,
Yeah.
right? And it just made it connect so well to me that being embodied in who you are and the value of who you are, and knowing your own value is the only way to be truly transformative. It's like taking that deep emotion and being able to, get it out get it out from underneath all that depth and turn it into something that is truly valuable. And so I really liked the connections that you made here. And
Well,
that,
and it
oh,
seems like in all of the queens, it's all about releasing attachments and going within. Everything's about going within and healing from within. If you think about it, like everything we're even saying, it's like all the different queens embody different characteristics, but still the way, it is all about coming into alignment. And
mhm. Yeah. I mean, and I think Anne Boleyn is an example of someone. She was a Taurus, and I don't remember her whole chart, and it didn't come out here, but she was raised in a way that's similar to Lucretia Borgia, where she was educated. She was sent to the French court because she had family connections there, but she was sent to France to learn the proper ways of life, like to learn intellect, but also how to learn to be a courtier, because there was always this possibility that, okay, well, maybe one day you will be the king's mistress, or you'll be able to work at the court. So she almost was raised to be the best type of mistress. She was a French mistress, so she learned all those ways of life, and that would have been thought to be exotic by someone like Henry VIII. And she also was schooled in poetry. She was Protestant, and well, eventually she became Protestant. She was very religious and spiritual as well. And she attracted the attention of King Henry VIII right at the time when he was not having the child with his wife, Catherine. And so she was the ultimate other woman. For 7 years, she was his mistress. And during that time, she was a really great mistress. They exchanged these beautiful love letters. That again, that's funny. Lucretia Borgia also is really known for these love letters that she wrote to a man, one of her many lovers, that were so romantic that Lord Byron, the poet in the 19th century, talked about those letters as some of the best poetry about love ever written. And so Anne Boleyn was also known for the correspondence she had with Henry VIII and how romantic and wonderful it was. So that was all great. When she was his mistress, she really stayed in her feminine role, which I think you probably have to do with a super powerful king like Henry VIII. So and there was always this promise that, okay, this is going to be the woman who seems like she's going to be very fertile and she will have my male child, right? So she got married to Henry VIII, and finally, after he got divorced, and she had a female child, the future Queen Elizabeth I. So that was disappointing to him. And then she also stopped being as romantic. It was one of those situations where a lot of the love stopped, and she started to be domineering and demanding, right? And having all sorts of advice for what he could do with his religious policy or with politics. And she came into conflict with one of his advisors, Thomas Cromwell, who also had very definite opinions about how he wanted the state to run. And he didn't think it was the place of the wife of the king to be advising. So we know that there's that saying, right, about behind every great man is a great woman and all that. And I think like someone like Jacqueline Kennedy was very respected by her husband and valued for what she brought in terms of how she could lead in different ways in the country, right? In a feminine role. The problem with Anne Boleyn is that she just didn't know how to do it in a way that wasn't offensive. Like it just rubbed Henry the wrong way with her giving him advice. And he started to get irritated with her. It's one of those famous things of the love is gone. And he got really tired of her. And then he actually had an accident, a really bad jousting accident. And when she heard about it, she miscarried and had a male child at that time. And so that was kind of the final straw. She was eventually accused of having been cheating on the king, which is a very bad offense, right? For a king, that's considered to be as bad as, doing things against the state, because then that puts the future of the monarchy at risk. So she was put on trial and executed, beheaded. So there's a picture of her getting beheaded there as well.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point about the lack of sex or the pull. To me, a Queen of Pentacles has a natural tendency to want to be independent and has a business mindset and cares about material gain and cares about luxury, money, and business and things like that, and really is very intelligent, really good for that. And the flip side of that, though, too, is that it can get to a point where the passion and the lack and the lust and the love is it becomes to business partnership in a relationship. If you have a king and queen of pentacles, it's like there's got to be there's a control power struggle too. It can become that's where it can become rigid. That's where I get that word rigid from a lot. Is a queen of pentacles can really withdraw and be cold too in their ways, and because it's such a feminine, fertile, sexual energy. And now on the flip side of that, you take that completely away, it goes cold and dry in a relationship. And that sounds to me, even when I remember watching Anne Boleyn when I watched it like a couple of years ago. So that I know that I remember that story. And then so control issues, and that it becomes control. How can I control what's going on? And then it just gets so difficult to come back from that. It becomes so cold and just possessiveness, jealousy, and things like that. And yeah, I mean, I think that's all I wanted to say to that. I just wanted to add
Mhm.
that to it.
I thought that was actually, as you said that, I realized that Henry was a Cancer,
Yeah,
and so
right,
he may be like the ultimate King of Cups, or I don't know what you would think, but it's like or the reversed King of Cups, that
yeah,
he was so loving and everything, but when he decided to detach,
he
I
did.
mean, it
He
turned into vengeance against people. Like he went extreme. He had a
Yes.
horrible temper too.
Yes, he shows up as a really good King of Cups in reverse, Cancerian type of energy that I've seen. Whereas, like, there's such a love and family, love, romantic, super in love, and then when they cut off and when they're done, it's like completely detached, completely 180, and it's very manipulative, and it can really hurt and crush somebody. Because Taurus energy is still very loving, very feminine energy, and a feeler. They're body people, so they're in their bodies too, and they can feel deeply as well. So I'm sure that burned her pretty bad. I'm sure that hurt. pretty bad, especially when he's a water energy and he can emotionally connect with people on such a deeper level. And then, yeah, that must have that, you know what I mean? And Taurus
And,
is and Tauruses are fixed energy, and you know, and Earth energies are in it for a long time. Like you've got the Earth energy, they're sustained, you know, they're solid. They want a strong foundation. They want a plan. They want a future. You know, I don't, you know, and so you, somebody like a Taurus though, who's a fixed energy, is to go through a divorce or to, you know, she probably thought she was solid, and then to be turned on like that, it's really hard to get past that. So it's sad that she got her head cut off, but at the end of it. But I don't know if she'd ever would have survived that too, because of the whole thing with the children and everything else that was going on. I mean, she couldn't make anything right. It's like everything was just going downhill in her life. I mean, that's no way to end, but I think you know what I mean.
Right. I mean, and I think she did think that she was set, and that's why she became a little too forward in making suggestions about policies, and, you know, and just acting like, okay, I can be flirtatious with, because that was the other thing. She continued her flirtatious ways, which was attractive as a mistress. And that's how she had been schooled to behave, but it just didn't convert to being a queen.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe she was a better princess of pentacles. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. She definitely a princess, or just the mistress part of it. Because she wasn't getting the attention that she was getting before too. Because once she become, it's almost like when anybody became the queen with him, it was like he was losing interest anyways. It seemed like,
Hmm.
you know, it was just one after the other. He just kept going until he finally did get a son. He did have a son, but that was the son that died young, right?
Yeah, and that wife was his favorite wife. But
Yeah.
and
Yes, who
but
died.
she died giving birth, so he couldn't get tired of her.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, or not giving birth, right, but right after, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was a difficult guy to please. I'm certainly glad I didn't have to be married to him.
Yeah. Like, I'm like glad I'm a peasant. I've been,
Yeah, I would have been somewhere not even aware of whatever he was doing, probably. I would have been out tilling the
I would
field.
have been a bohemian, Italian bohemian gypsy somewhere, you
Oh, that
know.
would be
That
fun.
I
I
would have been
wanna do
robbing
that. I'll
prostitutes.
join you.
Yeah.
Reading tarot cards.
Yeah, my Italian family members are probably doing that, you know, the brothels, you know, the prostitutes, you know, anything. I don't know. Well, you know, so this brings me to doing the reading on manifesting, and the thing with the Queen of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles is an awesome card to get when you're trying to manifest. And so when I do pull the Queen of Pentacles, I love that energy because it tells me that the person is grounded and can really stay focused. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a fire energy, whatever you are. When I see the Queen of Pentacles, that says I'm going to manifest abundance. I'm going to do this. I have what it takes, and I'm skilled, and I have the patience too. I have the patience, and I'm not going to overreact. And so a Queen of Pentacles is going to maintain balance and control of their emotions and their thoughts, and find other things to do and keep themselves busy, because they're used to being they can be patient. They can hold, you know, and wait for everything to come in. And they're practical, and they're just grounded. But now when it's in reverse, there is such a strong resistance to change, and this inflexibility and this possessiveness that can happen with the Queen of Pentacles in reverse. And if you have that possessive quality, or if you have a resistance to change, then it's hard for you to change your mindset. It's hard for you to see things differently. It's hard for you to move and adapt to what needs to change. And when we're manifesting, oftentimes we think everything's just going to be beautiful and happen and flow, you know, like I say, the parting of the Red Seas, you know, which can happen when you're manifesting. But oftentimes when you want something, the universe has to come in and has to create that tower moment and knock everything down so that you can get what you want. And if you're fighting or resisting change, you're going to be up against those tower moments, and you're going to constantly be struggling, and you won't let go. And because you won't let go and just allow things to happen, you're you're creating resistance to abundance coming in. And if you have a lack mindset, or if you're very possessive or greedy or guarded or clinging to what it is you have, you're also giving off this energy of, this is all I'll ever have and I can't get any more. So you're not letting the universe kind of know that that money just flows to me easily, or everything happens to me easily. And it's just this fear of losing control too. So the Queen of Pentacles in reverse in a reading can really show a very stubborn energy, a very inflexible energy. And it's just important for people to understand that it's that fear and that lack and that control and that inflexibility that's holding you back. Even in a love relationship, when I see that, it's telling me that you just won't budge and you won't adapt to your person, or you won't accept what's going on in the circumstance, and you want things your way or the highway. And the universe is trying to give you what you want, but you've got to be open to receive. You've got to be open to change and allowing things to manifest the quickest and best way. The universe wants to give you things as fast as it possibly can. It's not trying to hold things back from you. But if you have a Queen of Pentacles in reverse, you have a tendency to want to control everything, and your way is right. And that can create that can be another one of the hardest energies to move when manifesting. It's like, what do you do with the stubborn energy? It's like trying to pull a bull. I know we keep using a Taurus energy, but Taurus is the fixed one out of the earth energies. I think the other two can be a little bit more adaptable and flexible. But Taurus does actually represent the Queen of Pentacles too, as well, the Empress. So it's like, if you have the ability, if you don't want to be flexible, and even in a relationship, like, no change is going to happen. So you're going to stay in this stuck energy. You're going to stay procrastinating. You're going to stay. And also it can be a very selfish energy too. And people don't realize that if they show up as the Queen of Pentacles in reverse, it's like, you'll say or do anything to get whatever you want too. It's and a lot of times too, you'll stay in relationships or get in relationships just for personal and material gains. And there's a lack of emotional growth or involvement there. And also it can demonstrate a lack of commitment, true commitment too. So when I do see it in reverse, it shows irresponsibility at times, not just inflexibility, but it can show that people don't want to put the work in. You just don't want to do the work. And if you don't want to do the work, I mean, what the hell? I wish everything would just land and money would fall off trees too. You know what I mean? I do believe in miracles. I really do. I've had it happen in my life, but I'm also a hard worker. And I also know that if you want shit to happen in your life, you've got to make change. You gotta put your foot forward. And when you start putting your foot forward, that's when the universe just like starts opening doors for you.
So I have a question about that. What if you get so if you're doing a reading and they want to know about love, and then you draw the Queen of Pentacles, what does that mean? Because okay, so you said this, it could mean lots of sex, but does it mean, okay, you're on the right path, this relationship's going to work out? Or
I think so. So I love getting the Queen of Pentacles. Queen of Pentacles is one of my favorite. It's the Queen of Pentacles is a very grounded energy, like we said. So when I see the Queen of Pentacles, I know you hear a lot of people in like the tarot will be like, oh, it's such a slow energy. Nobody wants to see the Queen of Pentacles because they have it in their head like, oh, this is going to take forever. But that's the story people are telling themselves out there. Well, what it's really saying is, this is somebody who takes love seriously. And this is somebody that if you're really, if you're worth it, and your worth, and this person's interested in you, or if you're showing up as the Queen of Pentacles, that's saying you're worth it. You're worth the wait. You're worth, somebody's being cautious. If I see a Queen of Pentacles for your person's feelings, and the person's like, oh, they're slow as shit. They're not slow as shit because they're a Queen of Pentacles. They're slow as shit because they don't want to commit to you, or they don't feel safe or stable in the relationship, or they're contemplating, and they take love seriously, and they don't think that you guys are a compatible fit. And that depends on the other cards around too. But if I see a Queen of Pentacles show up, or even a King of Pentacles, it says you've got somebody who takes love seriously and who's very grounded and who isn't going to rush in or play games.
Mhm.
So I love that energy. It's very, very grounded. Almost every relationship I've ever been in is an earth energy, or I've had, fire relationships, but earth. And they've been the most stable, most grounded. And when they make a decision, they can make a decision in a day, but they've got to feel connected on all levels. And they see all, they look at their relationships as like a business too, their family. Everything's a business. Everything's important. I'm getting in this relationship. I want to build a strong, stable foundation. So if an earth energy or a Queen of Pentacles shows up, and if they're moving slow in your life, it's because they don't think it's safe or stable or secure.
Hmm.
And they want to make sure, but that depends on the other cards around it. But if
Right.
you've got good cards around it and you've got a Queen of Pentacles, or you show up as the Queen of Pentacles, that's showing you in your feminine, natural love, and you're a very grounded person. You're very practical. You take things seriously. You pay attention to details. You work really hard on yourself. You work really hard in your life, and you want somebody in your life who can match your value or bring something to the table. That's what I think of and so that's born in a lot of these passionate, lustful love and relationships. People, like, they want the passion and lust, but that doesn't last.
Mhm. Well, you don't want the passion and all of that, but no stability also. Or I mean, but some people maybe they do.
Yeah,
But if you're trying to manifest a relationship, it seems, or manifest anything, it seems that if you get the Queen
it's one of
of
the best.
Pentacles, it's telling you you're on the right track. Like
Yeah.
you're aligned in whatever it is you're doing to manifest,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
right?
feel like you're grounded, you're staying true to your desire, you know what your end game is, you're taking the right moves, you're working on yourself, you're independent, you're focused, you're not overly attached to anything on the outside, you're being practical about the situation, you're being resourceful with your energy. You're doing good.
Mhm.
That's why I love to see when I see a Queen of Pentacles show up. It shows me that abundance is on your way because you're attracting it in. You're doing everything. You're in alignment. You're very grounded and in alignment. I just know that in love readings across the board, people, they see it differently, but that's the real. That's how I really, really see it. And I think we all can embody, you don't have to be a Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn to embody the Queen of Pentacles, obviously. But when I'm seeing a Queen of Pentacles show up in a reading, it shows me the ultimate stability. It's what you're looking for, the ultimate commitment,
Yeah.
you know? And yeah, so that was a good question.
Yeah. Good. Thanks.
You said that the other day too, and you were like, I always get the Queen of Pentacles too, though. Since you know what I mean, it's like, and I'm always like, damn it, does that mean that I'm just always focused on work, and that's why love's not coming in my life? That's
Yeah,
why.
I'm just like, when how long does the Queen of Pentacles is it gonna show up? I mean, I'm glad it's not going backwards and becoming the devil or something, I don't
No,
know.
no,
But yeah, it's just it shows you how important it is to do the work.
yes, and it
But
shows you a
we also
commitment to yourself.
know the North Node's been in Taurus and
Yeah,
Jupiter just went in Taurus. So a lot of what we need to do right now is focus on quality work, doing our following our passions and doing it in the way that we know works best for us. And
yeah,
in a way, I mean, it's like a good type of egocentricism, whatever. It's a good type of ego. It's you're trying to find out what is it that's best about you? What do you have to offer to the world? And how can you make that the best it can be so that you do attract someone who wants quality and not somebody who just wants like a projected image of it, right? You don't
yeah.
want someone who wants Mae West only on the screen. You want somebody who wants the actual Mae West, right?
Yeah, and that's you tapped on a good point. Like I just feel like this whole transit like that you're talking about has been about us learning self-love, learning how to nurture ourselves, takes care of ourselves. It's been a lot of work. But those who put the work in, you're going to see your abundance come in. Like, that's what I see when I'm seeing the Queen of Pentacles. It's like it has been a lot of work for a lot of us who have been on a spiritual journey, and we've been constantly and sometimes it seems like, oh, when's it going to come? When's it going to happen? But we've planted all the seeds. I don't think there's anything else we really need to do, but just keep nurturing ourselves and keep focusing on, staying true to ourselves and staying true to our desires, and just continue to work. There's and becoming whole and grounded, and I just believe that that was part of the whole collective. We had to do a lot of this work, and so seeing the Queen of Pentacles is a really strong indication, I think, that you've been committed. And it can take a while. That, like, yeah, it does. The earth energies tend to, like Capricorn, have to work hard, and Virgos pay attention, work everything's about work. But the thing is the turtle wins the race, is what I always say too. And I always say that you put the work in, you get the hard work done, and the payout comes in later, and then you can sit back and, like a king and queen, and just enjoy it.
Right. And without getting your head chopped off.
Yes, without getting your head chopped off.
Because you did it the right way.
Yes, and it's hard work. And that's the thing, is a lot
Yeah.
of people, it scares them to put the work in. And but I think that even these channels and tarot and astrology, and people having an outlet and hearing this more often, I think it's more encouraging, and it's hopefully helping people to understand what we're talking about more. When you hear
Mhm.
people's different perspectives on everything and why it is so important. Some people just might need to understand self-care and self-love, and they don't, and that's why we're doing this, you
Mhm.
know? So yeah, I love the Queen of Pentacles. All right. And so what is this one?
This is the Queen of Swords. It got cut off. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yes, we are on the Queen of Swords, one of the next favorite ones. Everybody sees the Queen of Swords come and they go running, right? And the thing is like, we're here to change that, just like with the whole Scorpio thing, right? We're here to change people's views on the Queen of Swords, because the Queen of Swords is one of the most highly intelligent, uh, intellectual and studious, but also Venusian, loving, beautiful, and classy. Think of classy when I think of the Queen of Swords. And a lot of people think, bitterness, the divorcee, and we say these things, and or cold, but the thing is I think more of class and reserve, and thinking more balanced, and being able to balance their emotions so well, that they are such awesome communicators. And it's not that they don't have strong emotions, is this they're really good at hiding them and maintaining them and balancing them. And they are very studious and full of so much. If you just listen to an air energy or Queen of Swords, you're going to learn so much. And what people don't realize is, like, the Queen of Swords to me is the hostess, the one that brings you in, the one that is the elegance, luxury, and like the librarian we talk about, the one that knows all this information and is so knowledgeable. And she's the Justice card, and the Justice card is all about divine love, and also merchants too, and business, and bringing balance, success, and just love and unity. But it just seems that she gets a rap for being cold and dismissive and unapproachable. And I've never found that. But I mean, I have, like I said, we've talked. I have a lot of air in my chart with the Gemini, but I seem to be able to connect well with the Queen of Swords. I've always said, I always thought it was a Scorpio thing at first, until I understood my chart a little more. But I used to always say I can tap into the Queen of Swords easily. And there's just a lot of discernment. Queen of Swords can look at everybody's perspective, and can see, and can really tap in and try to figure out the best, the best mediator. It can be the peacemaker. It's the one that can really make a strong decision. And she's very strategic and very independent, and just a natural, like we have here, natural leader. So that's what I have for her. And here we go.
All right, we have the ultimate queen of swords here, Oprah Winfrey, who is an Aquarius. And I think that actually, while you were talking about the Queen of Swords as somebody who connects people, I was thinking about the history that I teach and write. I really like the Enlightenment. And in the era of the Enlightenment, women were really crucial to connecting intellectuals together. There were women who held salons, and those were places for intellectuals to come together, and artists and writers, so that people could come together and really sort of network. And that's like a type of energy that I associate with this,
Yeah.
that it is fostering the connections that are important for creation, especially. So if we think of the Queen of Swords, it's always got that element of doing it to further either justice or creation, like on that previous slide. That deck uses Venus as the queen of arrows, is what it's called in that deck. And so here we have Oprah, who kind of took that and ran with it,
Yeah.
right? So she is kind of the ultimate connector, who's connected to all sorts of people who are in power as well. But she came from a really humble background where she didn't have much at all. She was born in, I think she was born in Mississippi, not just raised there. And she was the daughter of a single mother. Her father was around, but she lived with her mother. She was, and her way out of that situation was through education, which is just another totally Queen of Swords sort of way. I think, did I say Queen of Wands before? I might have accidentally said that, but a Queen of Swords way to be is that she excelled in school, and she went for a time and lived in Wisconsin, and she had to ride buses to school because they were integrating schools there, and she was going to a better school to get a better education. And so much about her, youth. I think actually, though, she started to do bad in school up there. She started to rebel, so she came back down south and went to school, lived with her dad and went to school there. But it was like all about learning to be studious and excelling to the extreme in her academics. Then she went into communications. So her degree was in communications. I think she actually left before finishing it, but then finished it much later.
Yeah, she did.
Um,
Yeah.
so she was a communications major, and she had a job at the radio station, then at the local TV station. And from that, obviously, we know she then became this media magnet, and has her film production company as well, her TV and film production company, Harpo Productions, had her own television network, her own media empire, basically, right? And then was famous for her book group, which is very much like she brought back sort of this idea of doing book groups as a social activity as well. So that is why I thought of her. And she has this other interesting side where she could kind of go into the reversed position as well, right? Like the reversed Queen of Swords, because she had a really intense early relationship where she really fell in love with this guy who I think left her. And then she had a relationship with somebody who was married, and she had a relationship with somebody who was a drug addict. And so she had a lot of these relationships that kind of made her ramp down or turn off her emotions.
Yeah, bitter. Yeah, that's that
Mhm.
bitter and resentful.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that now today she has her relationship. I think they're still together with Stedman, right? Who is the
Yeah.
guy that she doesn't get married to. It's like
Yeah.
she's always kept this distance,
Yep.
this safe distance, which to me is just it seems like somebody who is never going to get hurt again.
Wow.
Like somebody who got hurt and it's like, well, I don't ever want to deal with that again.
Well, and with her power too, it's like, how can you trust? Because the Queen of Swords in reverse is, dishonesty and lack of trust. And I remember you saying something about how, you have to be honest, and you'll say to your kids, like, do you want me to be honest or dishonest to you right now? And that's what, when people see, the Queen of Swords, and it's not so much about being dishonest and being like, but it's about being dishonest just to make you feel good or to make you, there's not being truly honest with oneself. But so the thing is that she doesn't trust, and there's a sense of, I'm so powerful too as well. Like, I can't let people too close to me, because are they really in love with me? And that's got to be hard for a Queen of Swords, especially Libra energy too. I don't know if she's Libra, but in general, because there is so much desire for love and
Mhm.
romance, and then
Well,
not.
she's Aquarius. I don't remember if she has much Libra in her chart, but she still would. So an Aquarius is more about connection, right? I think she does have Leo, so that,
Yeah, Aquarius is about social connections and friends and people like of the same goals, humanitarian. As like when I was talking about Martin Luther King Jr., he's actually an Aquarian, and he's the one I had a dream. So I always think of the House 11 and North Node too as Aquarian, and
she's definitely a super Aquarius with the media aspect too. And
yeah,
one thing about her style as an interviewer, and then when she was hosting her show, is that she really developed a new type of connecting, in that, she would get people to open up, and she would create the connection, right? She would go out into her audience early. I think that was her, right? When she
yep.
would, with a microphone, and get people to talk, which
And
was so just interesting. Sorry, you were going to say something.
no, I thought we were talking about that last night about being able to connect. She's a connector like that. And so being feminine and masculine energy, she's able to tap in and empathize. So she's the people's people too. So she's able to connect with so many people, this energy, this air energy as well, this creative communication, and using that intuition and creativity of the feminine energy to be very empathic and be able to. So she was one of the first that would just, it's like connect with all kinds of common people, and people. That's why she became so powerful, and people just loved her. I mean, I grew up with her ever since I was younger. I mean, she just has a way, and it's that compassion that she's able to communicate that makes her so creative, and so and be able to connect like that, like you said, and she's just amazing at it.
Yeah, and even with The Color Purple, which was the film that
Yeah,
I didn't that she won an Academy Award for, or was she just nominated? I'm not remembering.
I don't remember if she
Um,
won or not.
but I mean, that film connected with so many people. I don't know how many men I know who just love that film, and they'll tell me that was the only film they ever cried in.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if you've met men like that, but my dad is one of them. Hopefully, is he gonna watch this? Maybe he didn't cry.
Well, it's actually a movie I watched when I was a little kid and still remember. You know what I mean? It was that, and I didn't know anything back then when it first came out. It's like,
Yeah.
it was a very, very good movie. It was one of her, I think, wasn't it her first role she did too? I mean, it was her,
I think so. I think. And
yeah,
then what's interesting is that she's kind of carried on in her film production, that she's um, taken these, well, either lesser known or known novels by African American women, and has produced them to become films. So it's also like she is bringing in other people to share in her success. So
that's what
that's
she's
that
been.
leadership too.
Yes, that's that leadership, and that's that. I love that. I love that she set the stage for helping others grow and manifest their dreams.
Hmm.
Whereas like a lot of people want to be competitive, and I love that connection. It's kind of like what I try to do even on this channel, and I admired even the Leo King for building his little community. It's like you reach out and you help others grow, and you grow to get, you help people manifest their dreams. That's how success happens. You bring everybody up, you build. And she was the one that did all that. She was always promoting people, always helping people grow, and she's just the master connector,
Mm-hmm.
and very powerful leader that way. So she's an amazing one to pick for that. We've got the dark. So here we go with the Dark Queen of Swords. So she can be strategic to a fault. She can seem like she lacks empathy, and this is where you can find the very cold, bitter, resentful. This is where the Ice Queen comes in. Very sarcastic, very cutting. It can hurt you with words. It can even be gaslighting too. I think things like that, anything to do with communication, mind games, very manipulative with words, and it can be a hard one to deal with if you're a very emotional person. If you're not a strong person and you're up against somebody like the dark feminine Queen of Swords. It can be very painful, and they can be so, it's like, emotionally cold and unavailable. And I see that a lot in readings too. When the Queen of Swords comes in reverse, I'm like, if it's the person asking about their partner and they're showing up like that, I'm like, man, you're already so resentful, and it's like you'll say or do anything to get what you want at this point, and you've already sort of emotionally detached, and you're not even connecting. It just becomes such a dark energy. I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like it can become one of the darkest, coldest energies.
Yeah, I've had some run-ins with people who are like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite fair to put Marilyn Monroe here for the dark energy.
Yeah.
I really felt like what's interesting about the Queen of Swords is the issue of balance does come up, right? And it's almost like these two are air energy, and that's why I chose them. And Marilyn Monroe is a Gemini, or was a Gemini, and it's like, but they both balance both sides of that energy. So
Yeah.
it's almost like you could pick either one of them in either position, right? And with Marilyn Monroe, I think, you know, so many people know who she is. And I guess if people don't know who she is, she was a famous actress from the 50s and early 60s. And she died in 1962 from a drug overdose. And there's been a lot of speculation about whether she was murdered, or did she kill herself, or was it accidental? And in the end, I mean, it's just that she really ended up tormenting herself. I'm sure it's because of all that air energy, that she was very unstable at the end, and um, looking outside of herself for protection and for stability, and never fully confident in her own abilities. So I chose these pictures because, first, the iconic one in the middle is, her movie star persona, and the one on the left also shows her as the sex symbol that she was. She really kind of created that type of blonde bombshell. We had Mae West earlier, but Mae West was more of a confident, mature woman, probably even when she was 5 years old, performing at her mom's, gatherings in Brooklyn. Marilyn Monroe was more vulnerable and always played like the dumb blonde. She
Yeah.
was always very funny, but she also was an extremely good actress, and she was very interested in developing as an actor, and she attended the Actors Studio, which was a very famous group that really focused on going inward to develop your characters as an actor and to develop your craft. So she really was so intellectual about her craft. She was very intellectual in herself. Like she was very well read. She married Arthur Miller, was one of her husbands, right? And he was a very famous playwright. Um, she also married Joe DiMaggio, and but she had these relationships that could never really last. And I think that she knew people kind of fell in love with the persona of who she was, but she had less success with people connecting with who she really felt that she was. That's that Gemini energy, I think, of the twins.
Yeah.
And she also did really sabotage herself by being uncertain and allowing other people to take care of her life, sometimes in ways that was healthy, and then other ways that were not.
Well, and I agree with you. And the thing is, with the darker feminine of the air energy, they tend to lose focus and clarity on their goal. And as she's playing a part and constantly having to play two different parts, eventually you can only be so strategic, and you can get lost in your own game and your own creativity. So air energy, and especially Gemini energy, is so creative and so expressive and connection, right? And so if you lose track of and lose focus of what's going on, and you lose control of that, like eventually you're going to go through a downward spiral. You're being dishonest. It's going into, you're not being honest with yourself, and you're not in alignment with yourself. So you don't have a stable, you don't have a place to land for a second and catch your bearings. You're constantly just playing parts after playing parts until you, and then she was on drugs too. I mean, just losing control all around. So her master plan was falling apart, and she was being controlled and pulled in all different directions, and having to keep up this persona at the same time, and that to me is the other side to the reversal of the Queen of Swords. you
Mhm.
know they're so highly intelligent, but at the same time, it's like borderline, you can go crazy.
Right.
You can only play so many parts and do so many things. So um, that was my take. I mean, did that make sense? That tied in with what you were saying. Are
Yeah,
you,
exactly.
yeah. Um, is there anything else you wanted to say about her? I mean,
Um, you know, I think that's the key. I think in overthinking everything, or maybe she probably tended to ruminate on things. I mean,
yeah,
she did
yeah,
have a mom who was schizophrenic, and she was raised in, like, she was in 12 different foster homes throughout her childhood. I mean, she just had a really erratic life and not a very stable beginning,
yeah,
and she was never really able to recover. She didn't have that stable Queen of Pentacles energy,
yeah,
and she also never had a partner that could really help her develop that, right? I mean, and she was so intelligent and so good at what she did, um, that I'm sure that you'd have to keep that intellect always engaged
yeah,
and always be working or acting, in order to keep her occupied. I think that's the sense I have, but
yeah,
that you can't, because you're human, right? You have
yeah.
to rest, and that's
Yeah,
the
she
thing.
had
Like,
no
she had
she had no landing
insomnia.
ground, like, no landing, like, she couldn't stop ever, so eventually
Mhm.
you're gonna go into mental illness.
Yeah. So I don't know what is the answer for someone who gets into that kind of frenzied state. And if you see this in a reading, if you see the Queen of Swords reversed in a reading,
It's
I
one of
don't
the
think it
hardest ones.
always means this kind of energy, but what do you think?
It's not always this kinda energy, but I can pick it up when I see a lot of other swordsy energy around. It can be a hard one for me to relay the message to the person asking, or the who it's, because they don't wanna hear it. They won't listen to it. They can get caught up in their own stories. They have so much scattered energy. Their thoughts are everywhere. They're out of focus. They're only hearing they're not listening. They don't have the ability to listen when they're in that energy, and they're also not being honest with themselves either. So they get into these, I'm going to believe my own thoughts, my own beliefs, and they lose grasp of reality in a sense sometimes, and also just will say anything, and they won't listen to what they're even saying too. They're not making any sense, and it can be very irrational, and It can be high strung energy too, and it can be hard to communicate with somebody like that because you're trying to help and figure out a way to create balance for somebody who normally knows how to do that, but they're so out of focus and out of balance that you don't know how they're going to interpret what you're saying. So it can be a kind of, it's one of the scariest energies to do a reading for, because if somebody doesn't like what you say, they're only going to hear it from their perspective of wherever they're at. And then they'll cut back, and they'll strike back, usually verbally, or get very defensive, and overreact, or it's mental illness, it's air energy, it's mental, it's mind, it's your thoughts. When you're out of focus like that, or you become in this chaotic energy, it's hard to even have a conversation with somebody, at its worst. Remember, there's 0 to 100 here, you know what I mean? But it can be hard to get somebody to calm their mind down and focus and get back to what's important. Can you clear some of that minutia? Can you stop focusing on all these other details? And can you just pick one thing to focus on here and try and collect yourself again, bring yourself back into balance? Stop listening, stop talking, stop asking questions, just center yourself. And usually that comes in a reading where I have to find a way to kind of be like, you've got to take a break. You've got to give yourself space. I'll get the 4 of Swords a lot when I see that. You really got to get some, maybe this block is good. Maybe this space is good for you guys. So you can recollect your thoughts and even trying to figure out, do you really believe what you're saying? Because if you're in that energy, this is self-talk. This is sabotage. You're creating spells in your own head, and you're starting to create chaos in your body, in your life, because these thoughts are going everywhere, and your thoughts create your reality. So if you don't have control of that and you can't center that, you're screwed. Like everything is like in disarray, disorganized. And you really want I think people that are in this energy just really need somebody who really loves them to really kind of just grasp them and says, and I've had people do this in my life. I mean, it's funny. I'll call up my ex, or I'll call up my kids, and they'll be like, who gives a shit? I just need them to hear that. I need to hear that. Who cares? Shut that shit off and focus. What's important? Do you really believe what you're saying? Do you believe this to be true? Or are you just so scattered that you're reaching for anything? And then what's scary is we can manifest from that energy. So we will manifest into our reality what's happening, and so it'll become even scarier, or proof, or it becomes more true. And it's hard to get somebody to do a reset from that mindset, do a reset so they can clear their thoughts and understand. Because when they get into arguments with their SPs, or they try to connect with another partner, they're being so irrational, and they're not listening to the other person on certain, like what I pick up in readings. But also it can show up as a coldness too. When people are like that, they're not even in tune with their own feelings. Like they're not seeing how, they're not connecting to what their thoughts are doing to their feeling, or how they're feeling. And they're not really feeling what they're even saying is making how somebody else is feeling. All right. So that can happen too with the Queen of Swords in reverse. They'll shoot from the hip. They'll be scattered. They'll say things they regret. They'll get mad, lash out, be sarcastic, be cutting, be hurting at different degrees, and not realize, because they're not in tune with their emotions at the time, what they're saying or doing. And usually it's usually blaming. They'll be blaming, cursing, cussing, and then later they feel regretful. And there's that, there's a lot of anxiety there, like, oh, and then shaming them, like, why did I say that? Why did I do that? I'm sorry. And there's that aspect of it. Did I just go on a huge tangent?
No, I think if you go to the next slide, that middle card there, it's from the I don't remember the name of the deck, the Tarot of the Muses or something, the Muse Tarot. I think that conveys what you just were talking about. I think it's showing all the ravens pointing in different directions, kind of doing different things, but that are mirrored. So it's balanced, but also you can see there's the potential for it to just, it could at any minute take off, go nuts, right?
Yes.
So I think the key is to maintain a balance, to know when to stop yourself,
Yes.
right? To know when to say, okay, I just need to go to sleep, you know?
Yeah.
Or I think the problem with someone like Marilyn Monroe is that she was being managed and not by people at a time when Hollywood was not all about protecting their assets. It was more like, we need to get as much out of you as possible. And so she kind of shut down. She couldn't make it on time to sets. She was taking drugs to try to stay in the right shape. And, it's just, that's horrible for an air energy.
It is. And it's also taking drugs is something that will calm down that noise. An air energy needs focus. An air energy it can't handle that noise, that anxiety. It's just, so that's where the drug use, will come in to calm the anxiety, calm the nerves. And it really is all about, like I said, I embody a lot of air energy and I've dealt with a lot of anxiety in my life. So that's why I feel close to this. But it's like, it takes shut down your phone, shut down any noise, any information coming into your head. Stop looking on social media at your person. Stop trying to fill yourself with all these beliefs that are not true, because you're so in your head and your thoughts are, that's the air energy. They're thinkers. So you've got to do anything you can do to not think, so that you can see things and feel what's really happening, and take a step back and get through the cloud. Now with Marilyn Monroe, she's so controlled. She has to show up regardless, no matter what. She has no choice. And so she had to cope with so many different ways to survive. And it can be really hard, that's where an air sign can have a nervous breakdown. It's really, it's like we were talking about the water energy. Water energy can go into depression and suicidal. You have the air that can go nervous breakdown, meltdown, delusional. I mean, all these cards have their own things, you know what I mean? And we all can embody all these aspects. That's what the whole idea of this series, we're trying to, convey to everybody here, that, we all can embody these. It's not just one particular person. Or if you're a Gemini, this means this is going to happen to you. It's there. We all have the potential. And right now, though, in this world, we all tend to be in our masculine energy so much anyways. And that's in your headspace. That's in your ego, in your thoughts all the time, that we see a rise in mental illness and anxiety and things like that. And so that Queen of Swords in reverse really comes out a lot in readings, because we don't know when to shut off. We don't know when to disconnect from technology, from people, from talking, from society, from taking in the wrong content. And people are just listening to anything and believe in what, they don't even listen to what their own truth is. And that's what the Justice card is. That's what Libra is to me. It's like knowing your truth, balance in the masculine and feminine energies, because again, fire and air, the masculine and feminine qualities can balance the two. And when you have a Libra energy, that balance, you can really know your truth. And when you know your truth, you can keep your mind at peace, and that's how you can have inner peace. And that's how you're going to manifest, because you cannot manifest from that scattered energy. You have no focus on what you want. You don't even know what you want. So you're going to get whatever comes to you, because that's your world's going to show your scattered energy. And when you try to stay focused on your end game, you're going to get so distracted so quickly that it's going to be hard for you to stay on focus. So with an air energy, if a Queen of Swords comes up, or if somebody resonates with that, it's going to take powerful meditation, hypnosis, scripting, journaling, things like that. We're talking about Matthew McConaughey. When you said he was a Gemini, it was funny because he loves to journal. And it's a way to get your words out onto paper and get that noise. And that's how a Queen of Swords in reverse is going to help herself come back into balance and manifest. It's going to be about focus, staying clear-headed,
That's the best description of this that I've heard in a long time, because I am all air energy, and I can go, like, my thoughts can race, and I will convince myself so quickly, no, that can't happen, or this is what that person's saying to me, or this is why this isn't happening. And what I've learned is that usually my thoughts will race or something when I'm overtired, even if I don't feel tired, and when I need to step back. And I think another trap of air energy is that we can really do a lot. It's like you can get on a
And you're focused.
train of, I am accomplishing this, and I can take on this, and I can do this, and I can be superwoman. And you go, 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 and you can keep going. And so you don't ever realize when it's time to stop.
Yeah.
And you don't really know what's a normal amount of stuff that people can do. So what's been helpful to me is to look around, is to stop and look around sometimes, and realize, hey, everybody else isn't working at this pace. I can slow down.
Well, and it's getting into your body is going to be,
Mhm.
like, I'm a Mercury ruled chart,
Right.
Gemini and Virgo, right? I mean, it's like I'm the same way, and I think that's why on my channel I'm bringing ways like hypnosis and things like that, because that's what works for me. Because we tend to connect, we're in our head so much, and you're right, we can create and think, and very, we love to learn. We love to
Mhm.
learn and study and teach and communicate, with that air energy. And the only way to come out of it is to get into your body. We're up
Right.
here, and it's like you can be, I always think of air energy as like talking heads. I had a teacher that said that, like these bobble genius heads, up in the ethers talking and knowing everything.
Yeah.
And it's like the only way to ground you and bring you into, and ground you into, because your air, you need earth. You need,
Right.
and the earth is in your body, and feeling into your body and being grounded. So it's being disciplined, and that's something that might be hard for an air energy, because it's so much better and so much more fun to just be free and get out there in your own thoughts, and just because it's amazing. It's a
Mhm.
storytelling. It's beautiful. So why would you want, I mean, it's once you get on your way and you're talking, it's like a song. It's like music. So it's like, and it can be, more than a lot of other people. And the only way to get you out of it, like I said, is we have to grab ourselves and say, no, I've got to disconnect so that I can reboot. Because remember, our thoughts affect our body. And oftentimes we'll be neglecting our bodies when we're in our head too much. Whether
Mhm.
you forget to eat, whether you end up only eating once a day, or overeating, or you forget to work out, or you get off your disciplined regimen, that you'll just get too much in your head. And then you end up, that's when you hear me talking too fast sometimes, or
Mhm.
overly expressive too.
Hmm.
So it's about getting in our bodies and meditating, especially if we're overthinkers.
Mhm. And also do schedule time in for connection, because I think, air
Physical,
energy without someone to connect with can also, then you can turn it into the toxic
talking to
talking to
yourself.
yourself.
Yes. I'm glad you
We
brought that
both.
up. I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up. That's one of the biggest, I would say, resistance when manifesting, because self-talk is always negative talk. I forget, I think it was Alan Watts that said, I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but like, quit talking to yourself. You're the worst person to talk to. And when we're air energy and we're constantly chatting, we start to go down loopholes, and we start to negative self-talk. And when you negative self-talk, you're sabotaging your manifestations.
Mhm.
So you're right, we need people to talk to, and that's why it's important to make sure you have certain healthy people that you can
Right.
talk to and communicate with, because air people need to talk.
Mm.
Even if we just need to talk and don't even all automatically hear each other, it's just a connection for communicators.
Yeah, or listen to audiobooks. It's funny that I know you listen to them, and
Yeah,
I listen to them all the time, like, I'll when I'm driving, because I have to drive a lot. Um, I think that's another healthy way to do it too, like, if it's a
very
good, so
meditative.
you're learning something, like, that's why Matthew McConaughey is great, because you can
Yeah,
listen to his book,
yes.
hear his voice, it's soothing, I think it's just building that into your busy day as
And
an
the other
air sign is important.
The other thing I think for air sign too is music too, because we're talking about
Yeah, definitely.
auditory. So if you're an air energy, vata energy, you're in your head a lot, you're vibrational, so music to your ear, voices are good for you. People with soothing voices, listening to audiobooks and people with good voices, and singing. One of the
Mhm.
best things I ever did was take some voice lessons years ago, and it just used to be so therapeutic. And when I do mantra and sound healing is the best for air energy.
Mm.
So it helps with the vibration and it helps soothe your brain. Tuning forks. I have tuning forks. All you have to do is just hit them on your knee and just ring. Next thing you know, your head's going, but you're coming into balance. It's
Mm.
a lot of noise up here, and that's why hypnosis is, I think, really good for air energy, because it really helps soothe the mind, and it soothes that noise, and that's all it is for air energy. It's just about soothing and finding creative ways to, because shutting up an air sign is not, we don't want to. You don't want, you like to communicate,
Mhm.
but it has to be good communication, and
Yeah,
it has to be not self-sabotaging.
right.
Yeah.
Liking to communicate, I just looked at how long we've been going.
No, actually, well, we said about 2 hours. I think that we did a really good job getting through everything, and I think we had a really good time. I was a little nervous at first, but we got through it. I love it.
Mhm.
Um,
I really hope there are people who are still watching and enjoying
yeah,
this, or that they can watch it in stages even.
yeah,
But thank you so much for having me on, Frankie, and
you're welcome.
thanks to your subscribers who I know probably would have loved to have you pull cards for them, but I mean, I really learned a lot, and I think probably everyone who's watching tarot is learning to do it themselves too, and I found this really helpful. I learned a lot from what you said on all the queens. So
Yeah,
thanks.
I really do try. I'm looking forward to doing the queen. I mean, the king's next, right? We're gonna do the kings, and yes, there are people here. They enjoyed it so
Great.
much. Yeah, so we've had quite a few people here the entire time. So, and people are gonna see this, and I'll probably do timestamps too for the kings and queens and things like that, so people can
Mm.
jump to them. And they're saying this was great, and yeah, so I love it. Thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing up the idea of doing this.
Well,
It was really fun talking to you today.
thank you. I
All right.
appreciate it.
You can still stay on. I'll end the broadcast and I'll see
Okay.
you in a second. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you for being here.
Bye. Thank you.